JT, great seeing you again, man.
Good morning.
Good morning. Oh, I guess you're in LA. I guess it's much earlier there.
Where are you?
I'm in New York in the
Oh
afternoon.
yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah. You're
um,
way your day. We're
yeah.
still getting going over here in
Oh,
Hollywood.
nice, nice. Well, listen, man. It's great to talk to you again. It's funny. I love Strange Darling, as you well know. When I saw this movie, I knew you had written it, but I still stayed through the credits to see who wrote this because I felt it was like such a great adaptation. It's such a great screenplay, even if it's not like even if I don't know the Stephen King book. And I had read it, but I read it like probably 40 years ago at least. I hadn't read it since it was collected. But so first of all, I guess how did this come your way? Like, what was like? Had you already done Strange Darling? Were you kind of doing this concurrently with that? What was like kind of the thing?
Thanks, Edward, and thanks again for more kind words about Strange Darling. I know you've been a big support. It's always good to see you. I'm glad you like. It sounds like you like this too, because
Yes.
when people like one thing, you're hoping they like the next, but you never know.
Right.
Um, and yeah, this was unique. Roy Lee was producing Strange Darling,
Mhm.
and I had just finished making Strange Darling, and I was in post-production. I think I was in the final, couple weeks of the edit, or maybe my first week of the sound mix, and Roy asked me what I wanted to do next. And even though there's nothing in the world that I love more than directing movies, other than my family,
Mhm.
I knew that after just finishing directing that movie, it was such a draining process that I knew I wasn't gonna be able to go right into directing another film. But I also knew I wanted to continue to work. Um, so I told Roy very honestly, I said, well, I want to direct another movie, maybe in a year or something, but I need to recharge, and I just want to focus on writing something. I want to write something for somebody else, so I can have some time just to kind of be meditative and focus on one thing quietly, in my house. And he said, "Well, how would you like to adapt The Long Walk?" And I said, he knew I was a Stephen King fanatic, and I said, "Of course, I'd love to adapt The Long Walk. Who wants to? Who do you have in mind to direct it?" And he told me Francis Lawrence, and I thought that was a great idea. And of course, he called Francis, I believe, and around that same time, Francis told him he'd direct it. And you know, Lionsgate greenlit the movie. Meredith Week was our executive, and her and Aaron on that first call, said they wanted to make the movie, but on so many levels, even though it's unofficial, the director is really the boss, and so I knew that I had to get the job from Francis. So Roy sent him a writing sample. I think it was Strange Darling, and he liked the script, and then we met, and we really hit it off because the movie that Francis wanted to make is the movie I wanted to write. The movie I wanted to write is the movie he wanted to make, and I think in the room when we had our first in-person meeting, he was like, "Well, let's do this," and so everything happened very fast after that. Everything came together really fast. Lionsgate came aboard, the movie came together, and I think we had to take a pause because the writer's strike happened right after we signed the deal.
Okay.
But as
Hmm.
soon as the strike lifted, I got to work, and we were in production less than 6 months later.
Yeah, French is a great guy. I actually have known him for like going back to Constantine. I feel like I met him back then. We keep on like every few years I run into him again for something or other. But yeah, he's a great guy. I really like him a lot. And really like now the thing is you and Francis and Roy all must have known like the storied history of Stephen King adaptations. It's really kind of crazy. They're like I think so far there are three people. Okay, George Romero, okay, he did a pretty good job too, but like Mick Garris, Frank Darabont, Mike Flanagan, they're the three like they're the pinnacle of Stephen King adaptations. So knowing that coming into this, were there any kind of nerves about like doing this, or is this kind of like a little lesser known, so it's not like as much pressure?
It's weird. I keep hearing lesser known, and I guess that's the truth, right? But as a Stephen King fan, I always think of it as one of his seminal books because it's known as being the first thing he ever wrote.
Hmm.
For me, it's always held a special place in my heart, but I think for the general public, it is lesser known. But I wasn't taking that into consideration. And in fact, I think kind of, how when when people are like not dissimilar to the walkers in this race, when they're teenagers, when people are teenagers, they tend to think they can do things that are against all the odds.
Mm-hmm.
And that naivety is sort of gives birth to a weird bravery. And so I guess my sort of, I mean, this is, the first movie I wrote for somebody else at a studio. And I just love Stephen King so much. I love the novel so much. I think I went into it because of, sort of where I am or where I was when I took the job in my writing career and my directing career even. I think I went into it with a degree of naivety and just rose-colored glasses. I think I just figured, since I understand Stephen King and have been reading him since I was in second grade, and Francis loved this book so much, I just assumed that we would be able to do something that was formidable and that honored Stephen King and also was great to watch. So I dove in, without having any fear and without really thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
I will say this, to be completely honest. Once I got into it, a few weeks into the job, I turned to my wife and I said, I may have gotten myself into some shit here because I'm not really sure how this becomes a movie, and I'm not really sure how we can do it in under 2 hours because there's so many characters, so many things, and so there was a lot of fear for a few weeks until, and this happens to be during the writing process a lot. I'll go for hikes or bike rides, or I'll just be in the shower, or I'll wake up in the middle of the night with an idea. There was a moment where it kind of all came together, and I had a feeling. I just it clicked, and I was like, I think this is the way we adjust the narrative to make it fit the cinematic form. And I called Francis to pitch it, and then he had some ideas, and we asked Stephen King if he liked our ideas, and then just dove in, and then the rest is history.
Yeah, I never know how much Stephen King is involved at this stage of the game, and I think that must be even more nerve-wracking to kind of go to him. I don't know. I feel like, I mean, he's obviously had a lot of stuff adapted at this point. Um, but like, yeah, I'm amazed that he was this involved, and it maybe it shows. I don't know.
He's he's not a micromanager by any means, which is why directors are attracted to adapting his work, I think, because even though he has such a strong voice, and I think that there was a trust, but he also, so he's not on you every day, like this needs to be in this or this needs to be in this,
Sure.
but it's just the amount of freedom and just the amount of kind of mentorship from a distance that makes it a special experience because I would have an idea. I would talk to Francis about it. We would decide on the idea. The idea would be run past Mr. King, and we'd get a thumbs up or a thumbs down back. And in this case, it was almost always a thumbs up, which was great. And so he kept giving us green lights to continue down the road that we were going on. And then when I had a draft and we sent it to the studio and they liked it, the final, the final benchmark was Stephen King. Like he had to approve it. And so that was one of the most nerve-wracking few days of my life. But the great thing about it is a lot of people, I assumed we'd send it to Stephen King and it would take weeks or months to
Sure.
hear back. And we sent it on Friday and heard back from him Sunday night.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
and so it was really exciting. It was really a seminal moment in my life, getting the approval from Stephen King, because I was terrified he would think I mishandled his source material.
Did you frame the email? Do you have an email framed on your wall now?
Yeah, it's funny. We were communicating through his reps, and I didn't even have direct contact with Stephen King till uh, I don't know, probably a month ago,
Oh,
and
wow.
it was really special finally interacting with him directly. But I didn't want to push it. I mean,
Sure.
there's only a few people. As when you think about Stephen King, you think about all the other iconic, the small handful of iconic people, Elvis and
Right.
Michael Jackson
It's
and
true.
Way and like these icons. So Stephen King's one of those guys, and he's a living legend, and he's still so productive and so relevant. So, even though we were working on something together, I didn't ever want to push that or violate any of his boundaries, and I kind of wanted to let it happen naturally.
Mm. No, no, I first read the book when I was probably about the age of the characters. It was also the last time I read the book. It's like not that I didn't like it. I liked it. I just never read it again. I only read it once. So I'm not really sure how descriptive is he of these 51 characters, include the major. How descriptive are these characters, and how much of it do you take when you're actually writing them?
As much as I can, as
Mm.
much as I can, because I love the book and I love the characters. So, ideally we would just take, it was actually 100 walkers in the book.
Oh, okay.
And we would normally take all those characters and all those situations. And I mean, an ideal circumstance, I'd be able to include it all. But that would have been a limited series,
Mm.
not a movie. So, the challenge here and what made me feel useful actually, because if I was just able to do a limited series, I probably would have just taken everything exactly how it is on the page and put
Oh,
it up.
sure, sure.
But what made me feel useful was that I had to find a way to make this a watchable under 2 hour movie. And so uh, the characters were so well drawn that I took as much as I could of what they were on the page and put them into the story. But some of them, because we didn't have as much time, needed to be amalgamated. So, there are a few characters that are kind of combinations of two or three of the characters in the book.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, it's interesting because, like you said, trying to get this into 2 hours, but there was this whole thing where there were like these movies, and then they say, okay, you know what? We need to just do a limited series. Like a lot of the books became limited series because like you said, there's so many characters. It was so. How many pages was your screenplay when before Francis started filming?
Well, my process is such that I always write a first draft that's very, very overlong because the way I find the voices of the characters is by just letting them talk. And so I think I had a first draft that was over 200 pages, but that was early. That wasn't even really a first draft. That was when I finished it, and because I never hold back. I just if two characters want to talk for 20 pages, I let them do it because it helps me find their voice. And then I do my own second pass before I show it to anybody. And that's the actual first draft. And so I spent, um, about a week just cutting, trimming, and I got the script down to I think 140 pages or something. And so I sent Francis that draft um, because it's always better to deliver more, I think, to a director than less. And then Francis had ideas about how we could cut more and what we needed and what we didn't. And I think the greenlit draft that we sent to the studio, I think was about 122 pages, something like
Hmm?
that.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna get into spoiler territory, and I'm gonna try to be very, very vague. So let's try to be vague, and but I'm sure you'll know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
The in the book, there's a different person is the last boy, I guess you'd call him in the book. And
That's a major spoiler, I think.
okay, okay. Well, don't read the book before seeing the movie. How's that? Sorry, Stephen King. Sorry, Richard Bachman. But
As long as you warn everybody.
okay, I'm gonna warn you. This is spoiler. So
Okay.
okay, so talk about that decision to change that. If you could do it in a vague way, was it you? Was it Francis? What was sort of like the decision to kind of change that major point? I guess.
Um, I wanted to keep the DNA of the ending and the themes and the message, or I don't know, I don't even like the word message, but kind of the commentary that the ending is, and the ambiguity, the emotional and kind of intellectual ambiguity. But I wanted to have more of a narrative resolution while having that emotional ambiguity. And I just felt like this was a really interesting way to explore the way we decided to end it. It was a really interesting way to explore the dynamics of the main relationship, which it really is a love story about these two people,
Mhm.
and so I thought it was a great way to have a hopeful moment, um, showing the best of human nature, and then a very tragic moment showing, somebody led to the very worst in human nature. And I felt like we were able to do that all. So there's some pessimism and a little bit of nihilism, and also uh, hope in that final 10 minutes, and that was the goal.
Great. I think it worked. Great answer. Great answer. I love that hear that answer. Last question. I'm curious. So obviously we love your last movie. Are you developing stuff? Are you just kind of being pursued by the time with a lot of people?
I thanks. I'm ready to direct a movie again. So I have I have a few things I'm involved with that I'm hoping to spend the next you know, couple years in the director's chair because I've spent the last couple years sitting and typing,
Hmm.
and I've got really excited about a new movie I'm doing with Lionsgate, The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon, which
Oh, nice. Of
uh,
course. Yeah.
is yeah, it's my mother's favorite book, and definitely her favorite Stephen King book, one of her favorite books of all time, and I told her when I became a filmmaker when I was, waiting tables and scraping together money to make short films. I told her if I was ever in a position to get the rights to that book, I would make it for her. And so I've Roy Lee, is my fairy godfather. Him and Stephen Schneider uh, and Andrew Childs had the rights to that book, and so they brought it to me. We took it to Lionsgate. Lionsgate graciously agreed to turn it into a movie. So I'm working on the screenplay right now, and we will be shooting that hopefully sometime soon. I've
Cool.
also got an original film that I wrote that I want to get off the ground soon. Um, and got one other thing too that I'm attached to, that Brie Larson's attached to, that J.J. Abrams is producing, that I'm really looking forward to doing. So we'll,
Nice.
how things shake out and what ends up being the first on the docket. But I'm involved in some stuff that I'm really passionate about.
And it sounds like you're in the Stephen King circle now. You actually got in. As long hopefully you can stay in, and it's nice. It's like it's a rarefied thing for people to get into that circle. So
It's really great. I have a weird feeling that I probably like, I mean, I want to do one, I want to direct one, and I want to do it well. And, I'll never say never. Maybe I'll do another one, but I kind of feel like if it all goes well, I'd like to quit while I'm ahead because I don't want to screw up my position in the Stephen King verse. It's a very it's an honor to be here, and yeah, I'm just grateful to be a part of it, and I still every year when a new Stephen King book comes out, I get it and I read it, and it's a tradition, and I hope he keeps writing novels for another decade or two.